Welcome to Proof Points, a podcast by Latham High Tech Seeds. Family owned and farm proven for more than 75 years, Latham Seeds is growing strong. Now, here's product manager and host of Proof Points, Steve Sick.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Steve Sick. I'm here with Aaron Steenhook today. Kind of going to talk about what's kind of going on within your area today, Aaron, and really how's harvest starting?
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me back. Yeah, we're rolling. I would say not hard, but everybody's pretty well started in central and south central Iowa over this way. A lot of guys in the southern part of the district have started corn, and it's surprisingly dry, with the heat finishing things off, and some pockets of tar spot and disease finishing the corn early. We've got guys picking, 14% field average corn already over this way. So on a lot of sub 20% corn. So we're rolling. A few guys cutting some early beans and getting into things that way as well.
Have you seen or heard anything about yields yet?
Yeah, guys are always a little bit tight-lipped. It seems like especially the first guys that get out in the field, nobody wants to be the first liar type of a deal. But for the most part, guys are, I would say, pleasantly surprised, especially on the corn side of things. There's some really poor spots out in the field. There's some really poor averages on some sandier fields, or some highly stressed areas where they didn't get some rain. But up, through Powesheik County, southern Marshall County, they caught a 4-inch rain right before the last heat event that really finished off this corn crop. And, there's some 260, 270 bushel averages starting to come out on some of this early corn. So for the most part, guys are really pleasantly surprised with what they're hitting so far.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Are you seeing any differences in maturity? I know you mentioned, moisture differences here a little bit. You seen anything with the earlier corn being a little better or worse just because of the heat and the type of year we had?
I don't necessarily know that I'm there yet. I would say I think there's definitely a distinct possibility that may happen in some areas. And I think, on the other end as well, when we go to the extreme full season, 114 to 116 day corn, I think there's some built-in heat and drought stress tolerance in some of those hybrids. They pollinated a little bit later after the hot and dry window, and maybe took advantage of a few late rains that the rest of the crop didn't as well. So I think, a couple things. The early season beans coming out, to my comment earlier, have been above expectations. I wonder if the early season beans may not be better than the full season beans, which is going to be a little bit contrary to the last couple of years as well. But the full season corn, and the extreme short season, or I shouldn't say extreme short season, but the very beginning or early maturity for the, relative RM for the area, those are definitely the two windows that look to be the best walking through and looking through plots. So.
Yeah, it does kind of make sense depending on when you caught the heat and how things were affected by the drought and everything this year. What about the west side of your territory, Aaron?
Yeah, the western side of the territory, obviously you get into some dryland acres, some irrigated acres, in a little bit different environment out there. But their dryland acres are definitely further off pace, in yield than the central Iowa corridor is. They don't quite have the ability with soil quality, to withstand as long of a drought period, as what we do through central Iowa. And we had a little bit more subsoil going into it as well. But early reports over there, there again, guys are pleasantly surprised with what they're getting so far. Not that it's a great crop, right? It's probably below APH. They're probably still looking at collecting some insurance money. But through the latter part of June and early July out in western Iowa and into eastern Nebraska, um, guys were starting to hook up the brush mowers in places thinking they were going to have zeros in a couple of weeks. And hey, this will
Mhm.
be an early harvest. I'll collect an insurance check and walk away type of a deal. But now they got to let
Right.
the combines roll and get it all in a bin and see what they end up with.
Yeah, it does really seem to vary a lot. I mean, just across all of Latham country, it's really highly variable, and I agree. I mean, my biggest concern, and I'm sure it's with you as well, and a lot of your customers, is going into soil moisture going into next year.
Yeah, that's definitely a hot topic, especially, some of the guys in the West that have a little bit more experience with that extreme dry.
Hmm.
They're talking about potentially pulling back planting populations for next spring already. A couple thousand plants just to let them flex and
Hmm.
breathe a little bit more, be a little bit more, um, be a little bit more drought hardy,
Hmm.
bigger root systems,
Sure.
and we saw it in some of the plots this year through central Iowa corridor. We have population plots, and we've got 24,000 and 36,000, and you could tell there was better stay green in that 24,000. They tasseled flowered just a little bit later, a little bit longer. They took a little bit longer to get to black layer.
Hmm.
And I think that was just because the water use efficiency in those plants, they had a little bit room to breathe and a little bit less competition. So it's going to be interesting to see how that equates to yield here at the end of the year.
Yeah, it is. But in a year like this year, you could really see a big difference. And it's hard to believe we're already talking about 2024 already, and we haven't even got the 23 crop in the bin yet. So, I mean, you gave some great advice for product selection, populations, and such for 24. Are there any products that are standing out in your mind right now?
Yeah, I'm going to split it up, just a little bit from west to east because
Hmm.
geographically, things fit a little bit differently. But definitely, in the West, 60, 97 at 110 day is shining really well in plots and looking really good in some fields that, are yet to be harvested. But we'll see how as they come. The 6155 new at 111 day, and then our 6306 new Power Core Enlist feature this year as well as 6477, our 114-day double pro, are really shining very, very well in that western corridor. Through
Hmm.
central Iowa, 5556, the new 105-day Power Core Enlist, the 6155 there again, 6306 Power Core Enlist, and 6477, all a little bit more flexy type products that, just the Power Core took the tar spot and some of the diseases a little bit better, was a little bit more
Uh-huh.
healthy. And I think the others just, showed their merit with some drought and heat stress tolerance, better roots, and some of that as well. So on the soybean side of things, the Extend Flex appear, to maybe have taken it a little bit better.
Hmm.
Appearances a little bit cleaner.
Right.
They didn't have some of the stress symptoms that the E3 beans showed. Um, the one exception I'll say on that rule was our 3123 E3. That soybean stayed greener longer than anything else. In fields, in plots, and it really showed its merit. Excuse me. It really showed its merit with
Uh-huh.
some of its ability to handle stress this year, and so we'll see as we get the combines into the field. Do the Extend Flex? Do they have some yield advantage in a higher stress year like this, or is it just appearances? So
Yeah, I think this year is really going to be telling as we get into you know, get into harvest, combines get rolling. I think there's going to be some deceiving yields. I think there's going to be absolutely some pleasant surprises. What
yeah.
about? I know one thing I've noticed this year, walking plots, especially late, especially on the soybean side, a lot of rootworm beetles. Are you seeing anything or an advantage of rootworm hybrids?
Yeah, there's a lot of rootworm beetles, and I think a lot of potential, for next
Hmm.
year. We're actually seeing through, and I'm going to talk about the central Iowa corridor here now. We're actually seeing a lot of resistance, even on the rotated acre showing up. I've got, guys running insecticide that had rootworm issues. I've got guys that are running below ground traded because they've had dipause issues and still had issues. Um, so it's going to be a little bit interesting. The RNAi technology is definitely a little bit of a buzz
Hmm.
right now. Guys are looking for something a little bit different. Um, the question becomes: is this a new norm that we're looking at? Is it a one-off year with the additional hot and dry stress? That we're
Right.
having more issues than we will in the future. There's a lot of questions going on around that particular topic right now.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's really difficult to plan for next year when you just kind of wonder if this year is a one-off, like you mentioned. I know there is a lot of worm out there. You're seeing some resistance and some certain technologies as well, but we obviously have to protect the plants the best we can, especially when we don't have the moisture going into next year at all. The other
Yeah,
thing that kind of
maintaining
goes,
those root structures is going to be key.
yeah, oh gosh, yes, yeah, it's extremely so. I think going into next year, is there any other advice you would give growers, going into the fall season? Obviously, stay safe is the number one, but anything else, as you go along, are you seeing any diseases, stock diseases starting to show up?
Yeah, there's the biggest thing I think is going to be timeliness of harvest this year.
Hmm.
We saw it last year. A few guys got into the field early and picked some corn before they got onto beans. And by the time we got done with beans, all the corn was 12%. Um, this year, I think even more so than last year is going to be, very important with that.
Right.
There's guys over here that are picking 114-day corn that's 19% already. It was 26% a week ago. 6 days later, they got into the field and it's, 18, 19%. This crop is drying down extremely fast. It died extremely fast. We had a lot of stress, as we finished out this crop. And so, you know, there's places where tar spot killed it prematurely. Those plants
Hmm.
are topping out already. There is some crown rot. There's some stalk rot out there. There's some brown spot. We've got plenty of issues out there that has the potential for this thing to start falling down.
Right.
And so just as you go through bean harvest, make sure you keep an eye on your cornfields. And if you start to see issues, start to see things, going down, it may be a time where you might just have to, unfortunately quit on beans, which is not normal advice, right? Not something I
Right.
would usually recommend. But you may need to go get a cornfield here and there, just to keep it from topping over, because there's potential out there for this thing to be, at least 10 to 15% off on the corn side of things.
Hmm.
Um, if we wait too long, and that's
Right.
that's pretty significant on the bottom line.
Yeah. Yes, it is, especially with commodity prices the way they are. And I agree with you. I think there's a little bit more stock around out there than what we're giving it credit for and what it appears. A lot of top dieback that is leading to anthracnose and things along that line. So I think your statement on timely harvest, getting that corn out maybe a little bit wetter than what people would like is definitely going to be an advantage this year. It's a lot easier to pick it while it's standing up than it is while it's laying flat.
Yep, absolutely. And with the dry weather, you don't get as much nutrient
Right.
cycling, as much nutrient uptake into the plant. And so, potassium deficiency, nitrogen deficiency towards the end of the year. Not that it wasn't in the soil or we didn't have the fertility there, right?
Right.
Um, but if you don't have the moisture to pull it up into the plant, it starts to pull it out of the plant. And that's the stalk is the first place it starts to pull it from.
Yeah. No, I agree. And with that, thank you very much, Aaron. And we thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode. And stay safe this harvest. And we'll till next time. Talk to you later.